so you're tired to listen to me, but I want to introduce our featured speaker today, Joe Hilger. Our featured speaker today is Joe Hilger, former Vice President of Global Service with DaimlerChrysler. Joe's topic, as mentioned earlier, is Mopar, Hemi, and Dodge, more than just brand names. Joe really started his service and parts career when he was a kid by carrying wrenches for his dad. Later, he worked part-time at independent garages while going to high school and later college. He took all the shop classes his high school offered and later obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in automotive technology from Pittsburgh State University and the Advanced Management program from Duke University. In 1972, with his service and parts experience and education, he went to work for Chrysler in the Kansas City zone office as a service representative and later service and parts representative calling on dealers. His field assignments stretched across the country from the huge metropolis of Great Bend, Kansas district in 1972 through the Springfield and Kansas City, Missouri districts, on to Memphis, landing in Atlanta in 1983 as a service and parts zone manager. In 1985, he moved on to headquarters as the manager of Mopar Parts Marketing, rising to director and eventually to vice president of global service in the year 2000. Joe retired from Chrysler in 2005 after 33 years and quickly joined the advisory board of Mobile Productivity Incorporated, where he retired from in 2013. Joe and his wife Cheryl, who they were married in 1972, so you can say that Joe has been married to Cheryl and Chrysler since 1972. But Joe and Cheryl, and they're both good. Yes. I want to thank you for that. Was that asterisk? Joe and Cheryl now spend their time enjoying family and the M1 concourse activities. Please welcome today's featured speaker and NCRO member in good standing, Joe Hilger.
I like that last part, in good standing. Cheryl has to pay the bills, so I hope we're up to date. Well, thank you for the introduction, and I mean that sincerely. In '72, we got married, and I got married to the corporation in Kansas City, and we moved, and I graduated from school all within about 2 weeks. So it's been a whirlwind since. We've had a lot of challenging times, a lot of great times. So with that, we can get started here. And my topic is really just going across the top of our branding and its impact on me as an individual and lots of other people, I'm sure. Here we go. And I just call it more than just brands. And what I'm going to try to do is put in perspective for you. As a kid growing up, when my dad talked about the Hemi, when he took me to my first drag race, and then I got involved in the service and parts world, there was connectivity there that went beyond just brands in some kind of advertising. And so it runs deep, but I know it runs deep for a lot of you because you got here, you retired from the Chrysler organization, or you're dealers today. There's influences and impact that runs deep with all of us. So we got another slide coming here. But anyway, I want to talk about the overview and what this did, though. When I saw Bob Lee speaking, I wanted to recognize him, and it gave me a chance to talk to you guys. But first thing I want to do is say thank you to all of you. All the retirees here helped make my career better because we had a good corporation. We had a lot of ups and downs, but we had something going on. And Mike, I was going to say this earlier, when I look around here, we could start our own car company right now. We got it all right here. Every discipline is here. But I wanted to speak to the influences and impressions. Also, you'll see this later, questions matter. So I want to talk about a little bit of history, and then I want to bring it forward to some of the things that are going on today. My history started, with parents who really, if we back up, really helped me get through a lot of things. I want to point out, I was involved in a little bit of racing. That's me and my brother over.
You have to press and attempt the in listen-only mode.
Just a little bit of humor here. That's me and my brother on bicycles in our early days of racing. I usually won, Mike, just so you know. I usually won. That envelope was in 1964 when a new Hemi came out. I was in automotive class. The year after that, I wrote to Chrysler and said, "Tell me all you can." I wrote a paper on the 426 Hemi. That was in high school before 1972. Just things happened, and everything kind of went from there. But Mike, this is the district manager check sheet that I had when I called on the dealers. And we laughed about Great Bend, but I had all the dealers west of Wichita, part of Oklahoma, part of Nebraska. So when I got married, I was gone a lot. But I learned so much from the dealer. I wish everybody had a chance to work with the dealer body that's where things happen. But we had our check sheet. I didn't always get through that check sheet, you know? Yeah, because we took care of the customer, tried to deal with the warranty issues, whatever it might be. I think we jumped one, but that's okay. Yeah, this is part of the influence thing, right? If you go through everything, we were all impacted by something. The song Little Old Lady from Pasadena, you know, caught my eye. Janis Joplin, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but when we see, I want to make sure you get this. We got some feedback going somewhere. So we go one. I was just going to say that Hot Rod magazine, when it came out, I was hooked. It was, you know, Big Daddy. I still have it, Charlie. Nobody's getting it from me. In fact, I have most all of my Hot Rod magazines from that era. And if you ask Cheryl, they're in the basement and they don't belong there. They need to. I got too much stuff in the basement. But at least with digitizing some of this, I can now, you know, start moving some of the stuff out of the basement. But we tried to work through, and these are flipping forward here, but when I came from the field into the Mopar arena, we tried to deal with the 4 Ps of marketing, product, price, place, promotion. And if I can go one, we also recognize that performance, productivity, passion, all of these things, aspiration, adrenaline, we tried to build a DNA. And we also looked hard at where were the parts going, and there was a lot of disruption during that era. And so we had to reposition where Mopar could be purchased, because if we don't have the dealers engaged, something's going wrong there. So we worked hard, and this is a Tom Pappert line, right? We don't sell cars, and we don't fix cars, dealers do. So this Pentastar, in my mind, was a continuum that we just always wanted to keep the customer within our scope, right? And we had to do more than we were doing. It's a challenge out there with the competition, with the things that can go wrong, with the things that happen. But this was the mission. And at the same time, against all odds, some of the guys know here, we saw a big opportunity in the parts aftermarket for retail, collision parts, all of the things that we were talking about. And right now, currently, it's bigger than it was when I was there, but the aftermarket is $44 billion. That's dollars and cents. And somebody's out there. There's a parts store everywhere, right? And now all the big box stores are getting into the business too. Everybody's selling something out there. Thanks to the team, in '85, we were already positioned. Where's Diane? People were working on the new packaging, and we really wanted to position the new look, because the counterfeiters, this made it hard for the counterfeiters in those days to copy our box. But the new look, only at Dodge Chrysler, and we didn't have all the dealerships we have today, Plymouth dealers, and there was no substitute for quality. Became sort of the tagline that we wanted to pursue. Wanted to get our name out there with that truck. We also wanted to make sure that we understood everything costs too much money until you get emotion involved. And so we were working with two brands, one direct connection, one was Mopar. The challenge there was never enough money. You know, after sort of the Dodge side, you know, and we were selling the front wheel drive cars, it became less of a positioning statement for the Dodge brand. And when it became our job to try to keep the performance parts going, we said we got to get some people involved. One of the most respected names at the time, and still, I just talked to Don the other day. He's 91 years old, sharp as a tack. He can tell you every racetrack he was ever on, and every time and every mile per hour.
Excuse me, Don Garlitz?
Don Garlitz, yes. So just why Don Garlitz? Here's a good example. In 1963, Big Daddy was on the cover. Ford swept NASCAR, Daytona 500, and they're on page 27. Yeah, that's where they belong. I like it, Mike. So think about that as a positioning for my era, you know, growing up watching all of this stuff. And Big Daddy is, you know, Chrysler, dragster, what's he say here? Tops the Winter National fuel cars, top fuel cars. At the time, we were talking about Dick Maxwell. Don was being used. This is a PR release for the 69, I believe. And then when we started getting involved with Don, we were trying to position Mopar in direct connection. But then later at CEMA, we finally said we're going to call it Mopar Performance. And we got involved in a lot of activity. Now, I don't know if you have seen very many of these ads, but we went out to the trades.
Sorry, trying to get the audio to work on the webinar, and we lost internet in the room, so it's getting interesting.
We need to call Elon Musk or what? No, not right now. What do you think, Dale?
What's wrong? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
Okay.
I'm just trying to fix a different problem.
There's a lot of trade magazines and a lot of performance magazines, and we weren't that big into retail because we decided the decision makers were actually the technicians, whether they be the independent technicians or the dealer technicians. When people bring the car in, they don't ask for a particular part, right? We just had to make sure that whatever part was put on was one of our parts. And original equipment is still the best way to go. There's no question about it. So I don't know where we are right now. Maybe back up a couple. I'll let you run it.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You can run that. I'm just trying to get this other audio to work. And
Okay.
every time I do, I end up with feedback.
By the way, Dale was awesome in getting me to this point, and I applaud everything that we do audio visual wise because it's a challenge with today's technology sometimes. I just want to hit this one real quick. I always like this one. We were in racing when Big Daddy was a kid. Go back to 1924 with Walter P. Chrysler, getting involved in the racing program way back. So we were talking earlier, Pete, there is so much history about the performance side of our company, and we need to, keep reminding everybody. Anybody remember the Advantage era? Everything was Advantage. Mopar did the Advantage program. So we were in it. But AC, Delco, Napa, all these guys, they couldn't run this ad. There's no way. There's no way. A lot of heritage, a lot of history. And so we positioned him, as I said, helping us sell repair parts, sheet metal, accessories, and maintenance parts. Now, am I going backwards? I am. That's me. It's not anybody else. It's me.
The big button.
The big button.
The big one.
All right, somebody was talking about the connectivity of the dealers. Remember the satellite dishes? I think we were the first to put satellite dishes on every dealership for that connectivity on parts, service information, car information. So we even had Don help us there, and we did some retail advertising as well. I can't give you the year right now. I think it was 88, 89. We hit 100 million people with our advertising. And the whole idea was that awareness on one side, but kind of building what we were doing. A lot of dealers got involved. And this is going by itself again.
Oh, no, not that remote. Which slide do you want?
Well, let's stop there. Daryl Gwynn, good friend, you know what happened there. He's doing a great job for the Miami project to cure paralysis, so I applaud that. But I use that one there that was just before. The one about drag racing.
Drag race.
Yeah. In other words, if I have to explain it, you'll never understand it. It's kind of what it is. There.
This one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now let's just go one. We got involved in the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Longest running, it's still going under Dodge, but it's the longest running title rights deal ever. Why? Because people came. The fans were there. We touched a lot of people by being in drag racing. Next. You see the people? The Mopar was there. Next. But guess what? So was the competition. AC Delco, Motorcraft, everybody was out there. So we had to be there, and we tried to make statements. And we supported the grassroots racer as well. For a little while, we were in the air. And we had Julie Clark doing the acrobatic shows around the country, showing off with the Mopar T34. Did it work? Yeah, this is market share during that era, and we started bringing some of the parts business back to Mopar. So now we can do the Hemi one. In my mind, it's the most respected engine in the world. I mean, nobody can ever dispute the name Hemi. I'll give you a little bit of some of the history, how we got there. Everybody knows about the 51, and I'm not a historian, right? I can't do what some people can do with the history. But the Gen 1, I remember my dad talking about Chrysler era Hemi engines back in that era. Okay. Here's Dodge, and we'll just go real quick with these. These are the kind of things I'm hoping we just don't throw away. We can kind of keep sort of a history somewhere, and I know Brant Rosenbusch has a lot of information, right? But it's one thing to just have it in my basement or in a museum somewhere. How do we get it out there? And I'd love to talk to somebody about that. But we were competitive back then, you know. Don was what we called them hemispherical heads. You know that, right? We didn't use the word Hemi. The racers did. Next. If you've been to Ocala, anybody been to Ocala, Big Daddy's museum down there? He's got tons of our Hemi engines on display. He's got cutaways, and then he's got a great little museum right there off of I-75, Ocala. Next. So that just supports that. So we stopped in 1958, is that right? We stopped the Hemi engine, but with that, next, we were talking about this ad earlier. Performance didn't stop. We kept going, right? The Ram Chargers were doing a great job, and whatever they could put in those cars at that time, they did. Very competitive. Next, so that was 63, and then the legendary 426 Hemi came with Tom Hoover. Always liked this little piece. I know you can't read it. It said, "On the seventh day, God created the Hemi." So I thought that was always pretty good. So, legendary engine. Wasn't just cars, right? I mean, we were in boats, you name it. Ram Church, again, respect for. Pete, right? Is that what you're talking about? Next. I was lucky enough to, as a field guy and getting into Mopar, I was lucky enough to have conversations with the master of the 426, Tom Hoover. And just looking at history again with some of the PR stuff we did with Garlits. And then there was a 68 426 program. That was a Dick Maxwell program as far as I know, but a lot of people supported that, where we started the drag packs. Did you know that Garlits Swamp Rat 30 was in the museum, in Smithsonian Museum for many years? Lots of people walked by it, and we had the little Mopar and direct connection. You know, paint cost money on those cars, so I didn't have any money, right? But at least we were there. And of course, Roland Leon was both boats in the early days, and the Hawaiian punch car, the Hawaiian. Next. A lot of stuff. I can't cover it all, right? There's no way I can cover all this stuff. But for the AMC guys up in the left corner, make no mistake. People respected what was going on from AMC, right? AMX cars and all that, they were stout. So a ton of history, and then we sell a lot of this paint. Do we still? I assume we, you know, Race Hemi orange. We made a lot of money in that paint. Loved it. So in back up on, this is out of respect for these guys. What the next one? Sorry. Next. So in '71, the 426 Hemi ended, right? Basically. So next we had. Now, Bob, this is the only picture I could find real quick, but stand up because you represent a team that brought out the new Hemi, and that was a wonderful day when I heard this was happening for me personally. But this was back in October or whenever Bob spoke, and I thought, you know what, we need to say thank you, and that's why I volunteered to come up here. But the team did a great job. Look what we're able to do with some of the Hellcats and the cars that are out there today. Next. Next, please. Thank you. Oh, we got to back up a little. I was lucky enough to be able to take these two pictures. Those of you that were there at the museum when, I think it was Dieter, announced the new Hemi, right? Dieter, Big Daddy Don Garlits. Anybody know who was in the back there? Wally Parks, who started NHRA in 1951. He's kind of watching over those two. Everybody know that Wally and Don usually had words when they got together. I always thought, I took that picture and I always thought afterwards, I bet I should have had Wally come up, you know, because he did so much for drag racing with NHRA, National Hot Rod Association. It is a 501(c). Idea was to get kids off the street, have drag strips across America, and that's what National Hot Rod Association is still trying to do. And then Richard Petty, of course, and Don and Wally. Some of you are probably back in the background. Okay. Then in 2009, the drag pack came out. Jim Sassarosi let us know that was happening. What a day that was. Next. And, Garlits had one of the drag packs. Larry Griffith got one of the drag packs. And the rest was history on that car in 2009. Tore up a lot of drag strip. Next. So again, so much history. Cheryl, I promise you, I'm digitizing this stuff. But how do you capture it all? You know, I'm just hitting the surface. Just really hitting the surface. Next. So a little bit about the trademark for Hemi. The history was hemispherical heads. That's what everybody talked about. And then the racers and the commentators were talking about Hemi. But I remember the Mopar performance guys all coming in and saying, we need to do something about the tooling because people are wanting the 426 blocks and the tooling's going bad and we need money. How do you convince a house that we got this old engine that we're trying to get tooling money for? And this is where I say questions do matter. All I did was ask the question. We haven't been selling these things. Let's make sure the judge, how do we know? Are they still going to be happy that we have the rights to the Hemi name? Because there was other stuff going on out there. We were doing it with the 2.6 Mitsubishi motor, right? Not a bad engine on the lower end. Mikuni carburetor, not so good on the top. But I lived through that. But we had the Hemi and the 2.6. You can make any size you want, is my message there. Next. We had so much heritage, so much history. Next. You know, even Cunningham, right? Bob Lutz always talked about, you know, the Briggs Cunningham car. But look at this. This is going to be hard to read. But this is a Hot Rod Magazine. Full details on Ford's overhead cam 427 Hemi. Well, that was BS. Next. Even Toyota. How many people saw this ad? Mini Hemi from Toyota. And I loved the caption. It says, if you know anything about Hemi engines, you know that they usually come in expensive, high-performance cars. I learned that Jim Press had something to do with that ad. My point here is people were using the Hemi name. Aries, who said Hemi in their advertising, and I think they might still be playing the game a little bit. See the Ford and then see the bow tie. And obviously they're building an aftermarket engine, but they're calling it a Hemi word. Next. On our side, even as late as this ad, we talked about the new hemispherical engine in action. So when I asked that question, the guys came back. I think it was Mark Reynolds, Leon Hardeman, the attorney, and Larry Henry, Larry Shepard, Charlie. I don't know if you were in that particular meeting, but they had their heads down. What's wrong? It was never trademarked, or it was never registered as trademark. So all I did was ask a question, and next. Oh, I want to get the petty ad. To go to the judge, and they did.
There, I think that's what you want. No?
This will work. This will work. December 22nd, 1992. If I forget that date, then you know my brain's gone. But the guys were able. All I did was ask a question. They did the work, thank God. But they locked down that Hemi name in 1992, even though other people were playing with it. So it's ours. It truly is ours. Has been from the beginning, right? So this just documented it. And all I did was ask a question. That's what I tell young people. It's not always what you know. I don't know much, but sometimes ask the right question, you get some answers you don't want, but you try to fix it. Next. Okay. Wait a minute. Back up. I thought we hid that particular slide. Anybody know who that is? It's me, Larry Griffith, Larry Pontiac, but the striped shirt is Nardelli. I thought we hid that ad. Sorry. We did make some noise when we ran this one and said we'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ford and GM for using Chrysler engines in their funny car. Because they were all doing it, right? Especially Keith Black. I remember when the guys came in with that one, I said, oh, that's going to stir something up. And it did. I actually, after retirement, I heard about it from a Ford guy. I said, man, did you get me in trouble? I said, didn't help it. I think it's like 8 million on the road. That's pretty good for performance is over. You know, we're not going to build Hemi engines anymore. Remember the era, and I don't know how these guys did it, but again, that's why I say I applaud the whole team that did it, and with Bob's leadership. Okay, now I can't do justice to Dodge in the next 5 minutes, right? Somebody else can, but I just want to give you, you know, there is an influence, an impression that was built with the racing, and I respect all of our brands, every single one of them. But there was something about that Dodge brothers heritage and DNA, let's call it, that kind of just kept on going. So Hemi rules there. Then we have Dodge, I think next. And the 1917 Dodge brothers. That car was actually used in advertising when they did the Dodge brothers, you know, connectivity ad. Next. Boy, it just goes fast.
No, it's, I don't know what the heck is going on. It's got a life of its own.
Yeah. A lot of history in just a few pictures I tried to capture. But we don't want to forget about the front-wheel drive era that we talked about, where we had Carroll Shelby, and we were positioning front-wheel drive as performance cars. We needed that era, right? We absolutely needed that era to get people into our cars, whether they're front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. So there was quite a bit going on, and we were still gutsy. I didn't do this. It's just I'm picking up a few things that Cheryl thinks that in my basement is taking up too much room. Now we have fun with it. But the guts, right? The guts. That's really what it takes. So if we just go one back. So in a second, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the Demon 170, but they brought a bunch of the cars together just to show our history at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and there's a lot right there. I mean, I wish we could have captured a little bit more of it, but at the same time, everything changes, right? So the electrics are coming. It was the last call in Vegas for the sort of, I would call it the drag pack of the Hemi era. And anyway, okay, now next, I just want to stop there. I was talking about Big Daddy Don Garlits, right? You know, he was on a quest. Even in hitting 90 years old, he wanted to be the first guy to go 200 miles an hour in an electric dragster. I call it the quest. The quest does continue. Somebody beat him to the punch, and I think Phoenix, and hit 200 in an electric car. But the times are changing. It was Bob Dylan. That's I have to accept that, being a Hemi guy and a Mopar guy. Times are changing, but I just wanted to point that out. I'll try it here. We just know that drag racing is still alive and well. This is the Gator Nationals 2023. The crowd is big, standing room only, and you go to the next one and you see the parking lot was full. Somebody was talking about all the stuff that Dodge is doing. I figure this next one is me, if you know anything about the Rat Fink cartoons of the era. Some of you do. This next one is probably me. You know, back up. Mopar King of the Hemis. Remember this? In high school, there was two guys could draw this stuff, you know, all through class and come out with as good a stuff as Ed Roth did. But it was part of a culture, right? It was all part of it. And these are just some of the books I have. What I'm getting at here is so much written about us, right? And with electrics, it's changing, but let's don't lose the culture and the dynamics that happen with that. By the way, Daryl Davis published some books too. I had that up. Does anybody, how many knew Daryl? He touched a lot of people in the company. So he's written some books too. I talked to him not too long ago. Like all of us getting older. Now I mentioned Janis Joplin only for something that hit me totally out of the blue. Because I was playing in Spotify. I guess you call it influence and DNA. Janis died in October 4th, 1970. Her music lives on. Spotify says they're getting 4.2 million listeners per month on that music. So there's where there's a continuation, I think, of what we've been talking about. Call it culture, call it DNA, whatever it is. And I just hope that all of this Hemi stuff lives on and we continue to enjoy, not just the past, but where it's going. Okay? What was Tim's line? We're not going to end this quietly. Make some noise. You can find that on the internet. I think it's great. Just get the adrenaline going a little bit. But does anybody know where the 170 came from? Two things happened, and Tim explained it to the crowd out there. When they saw how quick the car was going to be in a quarter mile, NHRA says you can't do that. And they said, so we'll just put a parachute on it. So when you buy it, you get a parachute. So that, NHRA had to look at it, again. And then he said, well, the EPA was looking at it, so we said, okay, we'll play your game. We'll make it capable of E85. What is 85% alcohol? It's 170. So that's where the 170 proof came from. It's kind of what Dodge is. In your face, we're doing it, we're going, and these things right now, the Demon 170, look it up, they're going way more than window sticker, right? And it's just one of those things. And the last call seemed to have created a buzz. This is automotive news, and Dodge is up. So I guess, Bob Lee, was there any idea we could get 1,025 horsepower out of that motor? But it's amazing. It's amazing. So with that, we got a couple things to talk about. I said I'd bring it forward. The Woodward Dream Show at M1 Concourse, August 18th, is going to have Mopar muscle. So the skid pad down below is going to have, there's probably 12 race cars. Our race only series of cars will be on display. And then there's already about 12 of those showing up, committed to show up. There's about 100 others already. So if you got a Hellcat, if you've got a GLH, you got a Challenger, there's going to be room for you for a while. At the same time, we're going to recognize the Ram Chargers for their contribution, and then 70 years of Corvette is the same time. So they're going to recognize, and they're trying to get as many. We all respect Corvette. I wouldn't buy one, but we respect it. From 1953 to 23, that's 70 years. That's a long run. So they're going to try to get as many of each year model as possible out there. So it should be a good crowd. And Charlie, please bring your card. And then with that, I want to just say thank you to all the Ram Chargers. Anybody that's been around that team that worked inside the company and made a real positioning statement for our company. A lot of respect for those. You know what I recognize, and we all had the same thing, all this racing stuff and all that, we had real jobs, so we had to sort that out too, right? All of us had real jobs, same way these guys. So, you know, it wasn't always just all about racing. It was the weekends, it was the nighttime, and Cheryl lived that with me sometimes, going to the races, like, do I have to go again? But, all right. Next is what I have, bringing it forward. Coming up is the Chrysler Employee Motorsports Association, is Saturday, June 10th, and be a lot of Chrysler, Dodge, Mopar, Plymouth, all brands associated with us and others. That group had to take some time off with the COVID, but they're back, and it'll be at the museum, I'm told, right? So that'll be a good thing. So I've got some of those pamphlets over there. In the middle is what we just talked about, and if you haven't been to a Cars and Coffee, know that in addition to the August 18th event, the Cars and Coffee is different manufacturers at different times. July will be Mopar, but there's an antique version, you know, and that's free to the public, right? And Gowling, just again, they're sponsoring us. Gowling is sponsoring these Cars and Coffee. So pick up a pamphlet on that, just kind of keeping up with what's going on. And if you have an interest and you can take only one, somewhere, I think Ted we have a few tickets. What we ask is, I don't have enough for everybody. What I ask is, if you can go and want to commit to go and only take one, we'll have some of the tickets for the Dream Show. What else? There's other information over here, but grab some of the pamphlets because it gives, you know, some of the information going forward. This is a team that made things happen, and again, my respect goes to everybody that made Chrysler, you know, survive all kinds of things, right? We did a lot. We were talking about Lee Iacocca earlier, and so Bonnie, it was great talking to you, Rosemary. The Reeves family was in Kansas City when I first started. That goes back a ways. Yeah. So, again, I applaud the dealers for being here. This kind of concludes my discussion. I haven't touched the service side much, because one thing I was thinking about, I need to say thank you to Bob, because when the Hemi got launched, we had Monday morning meetings that I think Bob attended almost every one of them, where we were saying, okay, we're launching this engine. How about the training? How about the field support? Are the TSBs being printed? Do we have the information out there so that we wanted to support, you know, that very viable engine program? So with that, I guess, open it up to questions, and I went over the 30 minutes, but I don't want to answer any questions. No, any questions?
Got a question?
Yes, sir.
That thing got a Hemi truck or the Ram? Can you comment on that, please?
Going forward?
Anything?
You know, that thing got a Hemi, yeah, I got one. I got a Rebel out here right now. I love it. I love it. So, Bob, do you know, I'm guessing they're going to keep the Hemi in the truck for a while.
I don't know.
Yeah. But I know they're going to electric as fast as they can. Everybody is. Any other questions?
If you have a question, just raise your hand, we'll bring the microphone to you. Company Red charges are present at meetings, this meeting.
Go ahead, stand up.
Yes, please stand up. And I hope you guys know about the Dream Show where there's going to be recognition. Mike Wagner, you know, right? I don't know if anybody knows, but Mike Wagner has control of the Ramcharger name, and he wants to get it back in its proper, let's say, awareness. And so we want to do what we can to support that. And that's going to be part of that Dream Show because they're going to do recognition of the Ramchargers. But that's why I say, you got the early days of the Gen 1, right? And the legendary days of the 426. And a lot of respect goes to the Ramchargers. And then we got Bob Lee with the current one and his team. So thank you for asking that question.
Joe, I have a question. And
Yes,
anybody else that maybe wants to kind of chime in, just share some of your thoughts on the next, the EV world that's coming on. If you want to, or
The politically correct one, or
well, I think this gets posted to our website.
here's what I'm very concerned about. Where's electricity come from when we are all driving electric cars because we don't have enough to take care of ourselves right now. So you got a production issue, a distribution issue. I don't think anybody's addressing that. And I just saw something that was interesting. Again, not to get into any of the politics of all this stuff, but if you go cradle to grave on a gas engine versus what we're trying to do with electric cars, the cradle to grave impact on the environment of the electric car, it's not a clean project. Rare earth, all the mining that's going on, all the stuff that's going on, all the way to what do you do with the blades on the windmills, all the way to batteries. And again, electricals, it's happening, it's coming. But I just read about this 20-year-old that bought a used electric car for $18,000. Like a golf cart or any of the stuff that you have, when it's old, it starts to run down. You charge it, it doesn't charge, like it used to. So she needed a new battery. $22,000 for the new battery. Now I'm sure that will change. I'm sure recycling, whatever. But when I first saw, we were in Washington D.C. and Tesla had a car there that said 0 emissions. It ain't 0 emissions. You just moved the emissions, And the only other one, and I don't know where this is going, right? But I'm going to say it. I just saw something on the internet that said, if you're driving an electric car, that's fine. But unless you are getting your electricity from wind or solar, you're kidding yourself. At the same time I said that, we know it's coming. I mean, every manufacturer's working on it. I just talked to somebody at GM, their Hummer, their Silverado, their GMC, all going electric. Now, the Ford Lightning weighs 9,000 pounds because of the battery pack. I gotta tell you, in my days of truck carriers, some of those are ready for that. That's a lot of poundage. There's a road where I live where the sign has been there forever and it says 3-ton weight limit. How does that work? Again, it's happening. We're going to be driving them, but I wish we wouldn't go quite so fast. I wish we would study it, understand it, and make sure we all have electricity at the end of the day, because I think it's a bit of a challenge to say everybody has to buy one and then find out there's not enough electricity to run your air conditioner and dryer and all that stuff, which happened in California, by the way, last year. So, and I'll take any opposing viewpoints. Just when it's happening, just make sure it's planned properly, I guess is what I'm saying. That make any sense?
Any other questions? Okay, here we go.
Joe, do you remember the Mile High Nationals? Did you ever go to Mile High Nationals for Sons and Martin, the boss?
I have been many times. I didn't quite hear all the question, but they are moving to the east side of Denver now. Yeah, John Bandemir just called and said they're going to move. John's like me; he's getting up in age, but that was one of the best programs we ever did. It really was. Thanks for that question, but a great family deal. What I liked about it, the first year we were out there, you've heard this story, I know. First year we were there, when the announcement came and they say a prayer when they start, they do it right, everything's by the book. And then John announced, said, please keep the premises clean and neat because my kids and my grandkids are out here picking stuff up. That made a difference. That little mindset that, oh wow, his own kids are picking up debris. It was one of the cleanest drag strips around. There was some I went to when everybody's throwing stuff everywhere, but that was a mentality. Where it goes in the future, again, nobody really knows, but they probably are going to get bought out, but John and Sporty are going to run it, so it's going to move. It was some big news in that era. Anything else?
More questions?
Mike, did we make her 12 o'clock?
Oh, no, you're doing good. You're doing good. Okay, got a question?
Joe, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but why was this 426 Hemi put out of production in 71? Did it have to do with emissions, costs, and then they brought out the 440, right?
And Bob, could you answer that better? It's a costly engine to build. I know that, but I was on the outside looking in 71. We were still bouncing around out somewhere else, but I wasn't here when they made that decision. Bob?
I mean, it's widely reported that insurance rates are going up at the same time, so I wasn't there at the time, so
Yeah.
I can't say for sure.
Yeah. We're guessing cost, insurance rates, and probably just the public, but you're right, the 440 kind of hung right in there, right? And nothing against that motor. That's a great engine. I shouldn't say engine. A lot of respect for it. But I think it was probably cost and consumer demand, insurance, all of those things.
Any other questions? Okay.
I want to thank my wife for putting up with me for all these years. And I want to thank all of you for all the things that you did to keep our company going. And to the dealers, God bless you going forward. So, Mike, you want back up here? Go ahead. I'll just leave that for you.
Joe, that was great. Thank you very much for going through that. That just feels so good, especially a lot of us that have been gone from the company for a while. I guess we never really leave the company. But, okay, that ends this. Thank you again for coming. Thank you very much. Please be careful driving home. Have a great summer. Our next meeting is October, usually the third Wednesday of the month, so October or whatever that would be. And do you have that picture? That building? The building? Hey, just real quick, if we got this. Right at the top. I don't know if you guys saw. Oh. Okay, just real quick, I don't know if you guys saw the brand new NCRO headquarters. Okay, so that's your dues going to work. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.